What's up, you beautiful chuds, and welcome to the Let's Talk Horror Channel podcast, and welcome to the Creep Zone, where we have very unrated, unfiltered conversations about something from the world of horror. On this episode, we're going way back to the 80s, right at the start of the 80s, which obviously I will get into as we talk about a deep cut cult horror, one that I absolutely love. It really, really, truly brings the fun. Honestly, I can't wait to talk about this movie because it is a movie that I absolutely love. Of course, I mean, I always say this. I go into like almost as if like I'm like it's a surprise as to what I'm talking about. But literally, when people are clicking on the video or the episode, they know what fucking episode it is, unless we're tricking everyone and we've put in a fake name for whatever it is. But of course, we're talking about Alligator. And with me for this, we have, of course, a true legend, a man that I absolutely bloody love. He's been on the show, numerous times before. I've been on his show as well. We've got Newman from the movies number 4, Dayz with a Z. Right at the end, I've probably fucked that up, but hopefully not. But hopefully I got it wrong. But Newman, thank you for coming back on the show.
You nailed it, BP. Thank you so much for having me, dude. It's always a pleasure talking horror with you.
Absolutely. I love having you on the show. I love the fact that I mean, both of us like a little bit of chaos, right? So it's always fun when we get to talk about a movie that is super fun, at times pretty damn chaotic, whether it's the story, whether it's about what's happening. Of course, you're the perfect person to have on this episode with me to talk all about it. So we're going to have some fun with this one.
Oh, yeah, no, dude. A movie like this is like Pop Rocks and Dynamite. And I think that's the energy you and I usually bring to any conversation. So the two of us together, it's going to be a little explosive. I hope the listeners are ready for it. I know I am.
Absolutely. I mean, if we ever did a podcast together, we'd have to figure out which one's the Pop Rocks and who's the Dynamite. I mean, I'm happy either way.
We can switch every episode.
Absolutely. We'll just have matching T-shirts with our names for Pop Rocks and Dynamite. That's it. Or it does sound like an 80s band, but either way, I love it. That's the greatest name for a band ever. So
I'm going to get back to my tambourine practice just to be ready.
Yeah, exactly. We'll play tambourine and I'll play the saxophone really badly. I don't know how to play the saxophone, but I'll give it a good go for Pop Rocks and Dynamite.
It's the sound everyone's been waiting for, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So there we go. So Alligator was released in 1980, as I said, right at the start of the 80s, directed by Lewis Teague. Is that right? Lewis Teague?
Teague.
Am I saying
exactly.
that right?
Nailed
Absolutely. It. And he also directed another film that I absolutely love, Cujo. It's a great movie with a fantastic, one of my favorite performances ever in that from Dee Wallace. I love her in that, but that's a good movie.
That's a damn good movie. And that's also another big animal, creature is attacking people that are trying to get out of it and they're stuck in some way. Fun thing too, the book that it's based on is really quite a good read. So it's a good adaptation and it's a good book all on its own. I read it for the first time just this past year.
Oh, well, to be honest with you, I didn't even know it was a book. So now you give me another book that I will try and read and never read, but it will happen.
What's it? It's a Stephen King. And the relationship between Lewis Teague and Stephen King got going because of how much Stephen King liked Alligator.
Oh, well, there we go. See, look, you're already bringing me stuff that I didn't know. I've got so many Stephen King books, and I didn't even know that it was a Stephen King bloody book. What sort of person am I? How can I say that? What an awful Stephen King fan am I that I didn't even know that it was an Alligator was one of his. But either way, Lewis Teague does a fantastic job in this, and he does a fantastic job in Cujo as well. So those that haven't seen either or, I mean, I'm hoping you've watched Alligator because you're listening or watching an episode about it, but we'll soon find out. But it is starring. I've not put a load of people because, quite honestly, I forgot to do it. But we have got the iconic Robert Forster in this, absolute legend. A man with a true hero's face. I will talk about that a little bit as well. But he has one of those very like hero's face, a bit like John Saxon, if you know what I mean. Apart from when John Saxon plays a nasty son of a bitch like he does in like Nightmare Beach, but when he's playing like the cop dad, being really nice, like him and John Saxon remind me of each other a little bit.
These were faces that had character, and that used to be something that Ooh, sorry, we got a helicopter flying right outside my window right now. They're coming for me, BP. What did you tell them?
I know, it's because they heard about Pop Rocks and Dynamite.
They've got to get on it. They got to get on it before anyone else. But, we used to look for character in faces that were memorable, faces that looked like they had lived a life. And, you'd get the camera close in on that face and it's expressing so much. Major movies don't want that anymore. Major movies stopped wanting that years ago. And it's really fun, I think, to dive back into these older films that prioritized a different kind of look.
Yeah,
And
you're exactly right. I mean, it's funny you say that because one of the other, I mean, it might even have been on the previous episode, but we were talking about people like Rick Moranis, Bill Murray, and stuff like that. Like, it didn't, like, what mattered was the person, and it wasn't necessarily the looks of it in regards to, like, not everybody had to be what they are now. You know what I mean? And now that's obviously like a big thing that sells movies, but like back then, like Robert Forster obviously is a good looking guy, but there is the character in him, like John Saxon as well, like it's their face, they're very like heroic looking, as I say, and I'll get into that. But yeah, there is that, like, the difference of what movie stars used to be in the 80s is so different to the movie stars of today in regards to looks. So yeah, I completely agree with you. But it is a bit of a shame because you sort of feel like you lose those lovable characters now, rather than being like, oh, like you can have people that do really good performances, but I feel like there's less lovable characters now that you're like, oh, what a fun person, what a fun performance, or how good that person is. But at least they're so different to a lot of like looking people than there are now. So, yeah.
he's very trustworthy. He's very handsome.
Yeah.
He's very approachable. I think of Tom Hanks in a similar way.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Tom Hanks, young Tom Hanks. Yeah, he was like one of those people. He was a good-looking, handsome man, but there was something different. There was something about him, the way that he looked, and that's what helped him sort of stand out. And then obviously the fact that he was such a fucking good actor as well. When you watch things like The Burbs, I'm like, oh, okay, he's a good-looking guy in The Burbs, but also he's funny as fuck in The Burbs. So like, but there's less of that now. It does feel like there's less of that now, which is a shame. Who else is in this? I've forgotten. Oh, Robin Riker, and Michael V. Gazzo. And then there's loads of other people, but I forgot who they are. Because when I was doing my prep, I completely forgot to write anybody else down. So, people can Google it if they want to. In this, you got, so on IMDb, it's 6.1 out of 10, so it's just over the 6 mark, and 87% still on Rotten Tomatoes. So I'm actually really happy about that because we know that sometimes there's a lot of these movies that are, the movies from the 80s, the ones that weren't necessarily so good, or even the ones that like are good, they have a sort of a lower Rotten Tomatoes score. And like, as I always say, I don't give a fuck about Rotten Tomatoes. I'll watch what I want. But the thing is that unfortunately Rotten Tomatoes is the thing now that tells a lot of people as to whether they should watch things. And when you still have something like, say, like 87% for a movie like Alligator on Rotten Tomatoes, people are going to be like, oh, I want to watch that because it's still a highly regarded movie in the world of what Rotten Tomatoes is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I put so much more stock into actual word of mouth. If we can create actual word of mouth with actual people who actually saw a movie based on a recommendation or an ad or whatever, and then they actually had a great experience and talk about it. I don't put a lot of stock into these aggregate sites with reviews. And I similarly to you, I kind of lament how much they've just become shorthand for people who don't consider the nuance of how these aggregate scores are actually put together. They just, they look for a number because they want the easy, quick thing. But it's like, well, the easy, quick thing is easy and quick. So it's not really that legitimate, but go ahead, it's easy and quick, and everybody's doing it.
Yeah,
right?
That's it. So, but the amount of like movies that I've seen that are like 30%, and I'm like, they're fucking brilliant movies. So fuck it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a movie. It ain't an 8-part miniseries. It ain't freaking War and Peace. You're going to be done with this in 2 hours or less. If it looks even vaguely interesting, or if somebody whose opinion you generally agree with said it was good, give it a chance. What are you doing for 90 minutes? Come on, give it a chance. Make up your
Yeah.
own damn mind.
But Google synopsis wise, Alligator follows a mutated 36-foot long giant alligator named Ramon that terrorizes the city of Chicago after escaping from the sewers. One place that I've always wanted to go in my life is to Chicago, but is there alligators in the sewers? I don't know.
No, I live in Chicago. You can come and visit anytime. And
Good.
no, we do not have gators in the sewers, but I kind of wish we did.
I was just about to say, do you wish you did? Yeah.
I kind of do. Yeah. You gotta, it would be at least an exciting and interesting problem to be dealing with. There's so much mundane crap that you have to deal with. Like in this city, I'm sure this is a problem in lots of places, but the potholes in this city are ridiculous. We are the third most populated city in the United States, and we can't seem to figure out how to just pay a bunch of people who need jobs to just get into the streets with the necessary materials and fix all these divots and cracks and potholes. These aren't like little potholes. This is like a kiddie pool that you have to dodge when you're driving, or your whole wheel is going to fall into it.
But you'll be happy to know that across the pond, we are in the same situation with potholes. So maybe they need to get pot rocks and dynamite on the case.
I'm saying, you know what? We're just leaving pearls on the table here. Come on, city planners. Talk to me in BP. We will fix your problems.
Absolutely. In the US and UK, we're going to be responsible for pothole heaven. That's what we're going to be. There we go.
Pothole heaven care of Pop Rocks and Dynamite.
Yeah,
A US-UK partnership. We've been waiting for this, yo.
That's it. Just us doing the like the Predator handshake on the cover of every.
Yeah. Oh my God! I wish we were in person. We could make that happen.
I know, if only, if only. But there we go. One of the things that I love to ask my guests is, when did you first see Alligator? Do you remember?
So in about 2018, I was going through a really ugly depression. And I think at the time I wasn't willing to admit that that's what it was. But looking back, that's exactly what it was. I was on the outskirts of a relationship. I was basically done with theater. And that's like what I devoted my life to at that point in my life. But I was just at a point where I was so dejected and done. I was just working a shitty job at a sandwich place. I was living in the smallest, crappiest apartment I'd ever been in. I was drinking way too much. But the one nice thing is that I had a lot of free time, and I started diving into horror films on the Shudder streaming service that I'd always been interested in checking out, but I'd never pressed play on. And Alligator was one such movie. I was kind of like, oh yeah, like I like creature features. You know, I like, to be polite, Jaws ripoff movies.
Yeah.
I like them because you can do it well, and this is maybe my favorite. So, and I love Robert Forster. I really fell in love with him when I saw him in Jackie Brown when I was a little guy. And then what I didn't realize is that he had a very prestigious film career. Well, I don't know, prestigious isn't the right word. He made a butt ton of movies.
Yeah,
Prolific
he made a
might
lot,
be.
yeah.
He made a bunch. And so there's a lot of Robert Forster stuff out there that I've never seen. And so when I saw that this was all of those things and it was led by Robert Forster, I was like, oh, okay, what am I waiting for? Let's watch this. And I just loved it. Every, as it was rolling along, any moment where I was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to get a little bit bored, something would happen. Usually something with that gator. And it was nuts, but in the best possible way. And, the actors seem to know what kind of a movie they're in. So nobody's trying too hard. Everybody's clearly having fun. It's got a great pace to it. I loved it. And it was one of those things where I was like, okay, I've got to file this under awesome movie not enough people have seen.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, mine is quite similar to yours in a way, and I love that you said about Shudder, because that's like, that platform for me has been such an incredible thing for, like you're saying, like, I talk about this in, a lot, and in the UK, we, and I say it a lot, we fucking suck for horror. And as a kid, being the kid that I was, like, before 10 years old, being obsessed with horror, robbing horror magazines because they wouldn't let me buy them, like the stories that I've told many a times on the show. I was obsessed, and of course we didn't have like what we have now with the social with the streaming platforms and internet and everything like that as a kid. So as a kid, Blockbuster and everything was my library and so on, and magazines, like I said. But the problem is that there were so many movies that we didn't get, or there were so many movies that wasn't sort of regularly available for us to see in the UK, and also everything was fucking banned. They didn't want us to watch horror, in the 80s and the early 90s and stuff like that. And still, it started coming around and so on. Once horror started becoming part of pop culture and popularized, thank you to the US as well, so thanks for that. But once our sort of like country started becoming less boring and understanding how much fun life can be, and and taking on more of like that US sort of American sort of like look at culture and pop culture, then we started getting sort of more horror, and then obviously horror started to become more more popularized over here. So when I was younger, there were movies that I didn't know about. So when I got into my teens, DVD started happening and so on. So there was a certain amount of VHS, then DVDs happened. And what was great is that then you could get movies imported from America because the internet happened. And then now I could go on the internet and look at horror movies websites, find out movies, get those movies imported and watch them over here. So for me, like, even though I was watching horror obviously at a very young age, when I got to my teens and the internet happened and DVDs happened, that's when I was like in a fucking playing field of like everything. And I like, that was it. Like, and Alligator was one of those movies that I watched in sort of like, I was probably about 14, 15, I think, when I probably saw Alligator. But it is one of those movies that I instantly fell in love with. But with me being the moron that I am and not having a brain that is able to withhold information, and also because the amount of movies and horror I would consume like daily, like just constantly watching stuff, that I would always forget about movies. And that where it comes to Shudder, because what's great about Shudder is that a lot of the movies that I'd never seen and wanted to see are on Shudder, and I finally get to see them. But also there are movies that I would forget that I had even seen and then rewatch them again, and then it would bring back those memories of me going, oh man, I fucking love this movie. And Alligator is one of those movies. So it's not the most exciting story, but it's like, I saw it in my teens, sort of forgot about it, and then Shudder, like yourself, it basically, I watched it on Shudder and it brought it all back to me. And it's now, like you said, rightfully so, it is a movie that for me is one of those deep cut sort of cult horrors, classics of the 80s that not enough people have seen. And there's a lot of reasons as to why people should see it, which is what we're going to get into, because this is it's not just about this movie being fun and absolutely chaotic and fucking mental. There's a lot to love about the movie on a technical level as well, and that's what we're getting to as well, because I mean, this is a great looking movie, but we're going to get into it all. We're getting to it all. So of course, when I do the episodes, I like to do a run through of the entirety of the movie. It is something that you tell me that you really enjoy, which is why I've brought it back and I do it again. This way we can get to those moments in the movie that you really enjoy. We might get to a scene and you're like, I wonder what these guys think about this. And then we might be like, this is shit. And you're like, oh, for fuck's sake. But anyway, so the movie itself, it opens with a mustache man, angry as fuck. Like, we're already straight into it. We've already got an alligator. We've already got a mustached man. And the alligator is obviously angry as fuck. And he already grabs this guy by the ankle, super vicious, goes for one of my favorite fucking finishing moves ever, the full-on death roll. I love seeing alligators do death rolls. The amount of times I've gone on YouTube and just watched death roll videos, it's the most fucking fun shit ever. Like, it's just, there's so much raw power in those death rolls that the alligators give. And I love the fact that straight away you get that. You get mustache man, angry alligator, bitten leg, fucked up leg, death roll straight away.
Yeah, we're here to see some gator wrestling, and well, sometimes the gator wins. All right, don't worry, everybody. Don't worry about that blood. It's fine. He'll be back next week with a wooden leg. Let's give it up for the gator wrestling. I have learned this about myself because I really love creature features. Like, I love horror, obvi. but I really love body horror and I really love creature features. And I think that's part of why I love werewolf movies so much, is because it's like the two mashed together. But when you ask, do you like a shark movie or a gator movie more? I have to admit, I think I'm learning. I prefer a gator movie over a shark movie. Do you ever ask yourself that question? Do you think you prefer one over the other?
Well, that's a good question because I don't think I have ever thought of that. But now I'm like really in deep thought. Like internally, my brain is like, I don't know, because there are like there's obviously so many more shark movies that are made. But then sometimes like my brain is all about the quantity over the quality over the quantity, right? Like of course. Jaws is always going to be like the gold standard, and then everything basically essentially that lives in the shadows of it. But when you get other ones like Piranha's still a bloody good one. But Alligator and is so it's interesting because I feel like you have the opportunity to sort of almost show a little bit more when it comes to Alligator, because they can be on land as well as in water and so on, like as we see throughout this movie. So I think it could potentially, in regards to like the chaos of what this movie is and what alligators can bring to other movies, and of course, you know, like alligators bite off Chubb's hand in Happy Gilmore. So, you know, so I don't know, like maybe alligator movies are fucking cooler. I don't know.
You're that gator that got your hand. I got his head.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's it. Great movie. But yeah, it's but yeah, that's interesting. I've never really thought about it because you just, I mean, the problem is with shark movies, straight away my brain just automatically goes to Jaws. You know, like that's the thing, and then everything else follows after that. And then, like, I mean, I suppose it's the same with Alligator, because then my brain just thinks of Alligator. But then Alligator 2's good as well. So, you know,
I was wondering if we were going to bring up The Mutation with your favorite blonde mom and mine, Dee Wallace.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I still think it's a very good sequel. I really enjoy it. And but the problem is when you make movies that are like Alligator and Jaws and so on, it's always going to be a hard time not living in the shadow of those sort of movies. But also, once again, the hard part is the fact that Alligator is still one of those movies, like we've mentioned, is sort of an underappreciated gem of a movie. So fingers crossed more people will bloody know about Alligator after Pop Rocks and Dynamite talk about it. But as I said, like, you know, straight away, I like the fact that we're into it. We get blood, we get death roll, you know, and it's absolutely bloody brilliant, you know. And also, the funny thing is, so at the start of this, we have a kid who we don't obviously, you know, until later on in the movie, we find out who this kid is. But this kid is really like, you think that this kid might end up being a psychopath because the how much this kid loves blood is so like apparent at the start of this movie. You think it's going to be like the next like Dexter. Like it's this kid just loves blood at the start of this movie, but of course it sort of comes back as to who it is. But yeah, it's just such a great start. But yeah, so and this kid as well, who obviously will come back later on in the movie, gets her own little baby alligator, which is cute as fuck. I never thought baby alligators were like as cute as that, and it's the most adorable thing, and of course gives it, as we've already said, the greatest name ever, Ramon. I wish I named every pet that I had Ramon now. It's a great name for a pet.
It's great too, because it makes me think of Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion where they go, "Is that an earthquake? No, it's Ramon." And there really is a moment in this movie where you stop and go, "Oh fuck, is that an earthquake? Oh no, it's Ramon."
Yeah, you're right. See, the 90s kid in me thinks of Razor Ramon the wrestler.
We're all over the place here.
We absolutely a great name. It's absolutely great name. The fact that I haven't got a son and called it Ramon is an absolute travesty, to be honest with you. But yes, so we've got a cool start, cool intro. We've got a kid that loves blood. We've got an alligator already, a baby alligator. But sadly, for some reason, I don't really know why. I mean, it could be something that I'm completely missing. But the dad of the kid comes home. I mean, maybe it's just a case of like we've got to make him angry for what happens. But the dad comes in and literally basically flushes the alligator down the toilet, which is bloody horrible. This poor little alligator. But also, doesn't it like? I think it's like that's like a and a myth, isn't it, that the people used to put alligators down the toilet? I
Yeah,
think.
it's a bit of an old wives' tale. Like the gator in question would have to be so tiny to actually flush all the way down the pipes. So first off, that makes no sense. Like if I mean, would make no sense if the movie was real life. Obviously, it's a
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
So that's one thing that's a bit of a stretch. He says that he's angry because he found little crocodile turds around the house. Like
Oh,
there's poop
okay.
around the house, like behind the laundry basket or what have you. Now, whether or not he's absolutely positive that it came from this crocodile and not maybe a mouse that's loose in the house that you don't know about, it feels, especially when he says, yeah, we're just going to tell her it ran away like we did with her hamsters. It
Yeah.
feels like he just got sick of this little animal being in the home and he just decided he didn't want it there anymore. Like he seems pretty drunk at
Yeah,
this
yeah.
point. It's like an
He's
angry
just a
drunk
son of a bitch.
jackass.
Yeah, yeah, he's just a son of a bitch who's just like, my daughter, I don't want her having any pets whatsoever. And this poor little alligator. But the good thing is that at that point, we already know that that alligator. What I love about this movie is that it has, and we go through it, it has so many piece of shit characters that you know that they're all going to get their comeuppance at some point, and this alligator is going to eat the absolute shit out of them, or something's going to happen to them. And that's what makes the movie more fun for me, because you know, like, as soon as that alligator goes down the sewer, you know that alligator is going to eat the fuck out of everyone later, and it's great because you're like, you can't wait for like those moments to happen, uh, which
Yeah,
is really cool.
we're not at the end. We're at the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So now we cut to 12 years later, and we're in the legendary Robert Forster. We're with the legendary Robert Forster, and as I said, I have written it down here as well, which is weird. But he does have a hero's face. That's what I wrote down here, and he does. He's got those sort of blue eyes. He's like very like chiseled sort of face as well. And he's in a pet shop with his dog. But not only so, this happens something already in the movie. And I don't know, you might be able to explain it to me a little bit better in regards to why the fuck it happens. But throughout this movie, this is the first example, and throughout, because I've written down, I think, every example of where they keep on taking the piss out of Robert Forster's hairline. And this, I feel so sorry for him every time I watch this movie, because I'm like, why are they saying this shit to him? It's so sad. Like,
So
leave him alone.
this is something that I can help you out with and assuage your
Good.
bad feelings. Robert Forster was going through male pattern baldness and he was a little sensitive about it. But because he knew he was, a movie actor and he was going to be on camera, he wanted to get in front of it before anybody else had a chance to. And so in more than just this movie, this also happens in Jackie Brown. There will be conversations with other characters about his hair going. Those were Robert Forster's suggestions. He was always the one who
Oh,
said
okay.
to the director, hey, can we put in a little bit about that right here? And the directors were always game. So every one of those, that's the actor's idea to put that in there, partly because he didn't want anybody else to be able to make fun of it or call him out for his hair going first. He wanted to be the first guy to make a joke about it. But also because it humanizes the character a little bit more. He's
Yeah,
not,
you're right. Yeah.
big, tough action guy. We aren't going to get Bruce Willis as John McClane until fucking 1988, I think. Am I off on
Yeah,
that? Is
yeah, I
that
think
right?
you're right. Yeah,
And so like it it gives us a bit more of a human hero. And plus that scene also, what's one of the very first things we meet this guy with a puppy, with a cute
yeah.
little dog that he's going to be taking care of. And later on we find out that the bad medical dudes are doing experiments on
Oh,
puppies.
sons of bitches.
Sons of bitches, God, like I'll back an alligator if it means if I'm on the side of the puppies.
Yeah, you're right. That's what's funny as well, isn't it? Like I was saying earlier, in this movie, you want the alligator to win, like almost like as much as you love Robert Forster. And there is a moment as we go through it, they do set up Robert Forster to be like that very lovely guy, the nice guy, the hero. But there is the one moment that we get to later on where he's a proper fucking dickhead. But then he does apologize for it, and then you're back with him, and you're like, oh, okay. But we'll get to that bit as well. But yeah, you're exactly right. Like it does make him like more of a relatable human character, and he does have a dog with him, which is also great because how many characters have dogs with them? And once again, it adds to the absolute love and charm that of this movie, which is there's so much little things about this movie that I love, but I'm glad that you told me that, because for all these years, every time I watch this movie, I feel so sorry for Robert Forster, because I was like, why are they being so fucking mean to him? But I'm glad that it was his idea. So with Forster, anyway, obviously outside, he's out of the pet shop now, but Forster is now at the sewage tank place, or whatever. Is it a sewage sort of place? I think it is, isn't it? Or I
Yeah,
could
it's
be
like where all
wrong.
the it's like I like the water sewage treatment plant or whatever. It's like where
Yes.
everything ends up, like the reservoir maybe. Because
Yeah,
yeah,
that's right.
they're
An
finding body
arm, or
parts.
that's right. Yeah, they find an arm, and guess what? I bloody wonder what on earth could have done that after 12 years later of this alligator going down the toilet. I wonder what it could be. Obviously, at this point, they don't know, but
Yeah,
we know.
I'm gonna agree
Uh,
with the newspapers. It's a slasher, the Chicago sewer slasher. Oh, it's a killer. Should we be afraid of ourselves? Should we get some
yeah.
cops in the street to murder some 13-year-olds? What are we gonna do? We're scared.
Yeah, do you know what would be hilarious if there was like the other way that this movie goes, is that there was no alligator in it whatsoever, and Robert Forster is the one doing it all, and he's the Chicago slasher or whatever it is. That would be a completely different movie, but I'd still watch it because it's got him in it. So the guy from the pet shop is out catching dogs, but sadly not to look after him, because he's a fucking piece of shit, because he's there, like you said as well, he's there to give it to some science nerds to do experiments on. So once again, we've got these characters that are sons of bitches that we can't wait to die, essentially.
And
Also, that guy that's in the pet shop, I recognize him from somewhere, and I couldn't remember what it was from. And I think I did write it down, but now I've completely forgotten what it was. But do you know what he was from?
I do. That is an amazing character actor who got a lot of work in the 70s named Sidney Lassick. And you likely remember him from Carrie, where he was the douchebag English teacher who was really rude to her about her poem and stuff. But he was also in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest as one of
That's
the
the
inmates,
one.
Cheswick.
Yeah, that's the one. When you said that, as soon as you said one, I was like, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. That's the one. That's the
God,
one.
he's
Yeah,
so good in that.
so good. Yeah, this guy is in it. Which you reminded me of, so thank you for that. But
Yeah.
so now, Forster is looking for some missing people, and it's all starting to add up a little bit, because of course, we already know it's a bloody alligator doing it. And the pet shop owner is back once again, but this time he's with a shopping trolley heading into the sewers. But he continues to once again be an absolute son of a bitch, because we know that he's getting these pets to give to the science nerds. But here he's basically got a trolley full of black bags with dead animals, which he's dropping into the sewer. But one of them doesn't quite land into the water, so he has to climb down a little ladder. And of course, we sort of know what's going to happen. He's there trying to get rid of the evidence, and this son of a bitch, we see a glimpse of the eye of the alligator, and we know that he's going to get absolutely fucked up, which he does, and the alligator is ready to pounce on him, and he does, and of course, that son of a bitch is absolutely definitely dead. It's a great scene. I love the fact that it does what it should do, which doesn't really show too much, because obviously that's the excitement of like when you finally, especially with this movie, which is what for me one of the best examples of like biding your time to like to have that reveal, and then when you reveal it and you see everything in the best possible way in this movie, and it's pure chaos on screen, and it looks incredible still, and I can't wait to get there. But yeah, that guy from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I can't say, I mean, he did deserve to die in this, and he got his comeuppance.
Oh yeah, you mess with puppies, you go down. And I appreciate too when he's at, meeting with our science nerds. I'm trying to remember if they're like a pharmaceutical company. They're like trying to develop drugs and they're doing these experiments on these animals. He's like, there's a little bit of heat. Maybe I shouldn't bring so many, puppies or maybe some cats or some other animals that won't go. And the guy just looks up, puppies.
Yeah.
We want puppies. Bring me puppies to do experiments on. It's like, Jesus.
Yeah,
And
just
get rid of these
setting
dead
it up.
animals. I'm done with them.
I know, just setting all these horrible people up. But like I said, like that's the great thing about this movie, is that it just sets it all up for you to hate these people and can't wait for a fucking alligator to eat the shit out of them and death roll their asses constantly.
Also, when
But
they
for,
find the dude's leg, the leg they find is like wearing alligator shoes.
yeah,
That
that's
was
it.
a
Yeah.
cute little joke they slid in there, I thought.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. But Forster is now speaking to the science nerds about why the fuck was there such a massive dog. Oh yeah, because there's a bit where sort of to set up the sort of like the mutation side of it. And why the alligator is so big. There's a woman that like has a dog and the dog turns up dead, but she's just like, I had this sweater for him and it was like it used to fit him, and then now it doesn't because it's absolutely fucking massive. And Robert Forster's like, well, I don't know what's going on here, and of course that's what he goes to see the science nerds about. And also, like I said, there's already so much to for you to not like about the other characters in this movie, and that's what so you're already on Forster's side, you're already on the side of the alligator, because literally there's a bit in it where one of the science nerd, like there's like one like sort of main science nerd, apart from obviously we're getting to the sexy science nerd lady later on when she turns up.
But this guy, we eventually learn his name is Arthur, but we don't actually learn that until way later. But that's the guy who's like, oh yes, we cut the puppy larynxes when they come in here, so they don't. It keeps things quiet. He's so smug and just
such a
gross and inhumane to these animals.
I know, like it's one of those things. Like this is why I could never be a cop, because I would lay these motherfuckers out. You tell me that you're cutting a dog's larynx, you're fucking getting yours cut. You know what I mean? Like this is why I'd never be a cop. So even in movies, I'd probably punch him in the face for saying it. But anyway, yeah. So like you said, like he does talk about like the horrible things they're doing to the test subject dogs, keeping it quiet. And it's basically they're all horrible people. You can't wait for them to die. But then the science nerd is now in a fancy office with some old dude who's sitting there trying to completely alpha him, because he's sitting as close to the guy as he possibly can, like right in front of him, like clear. This guy is trying to alpha him because he's basically putting his dick right in front of this guy's face. And also, this guy, like he's clearly dodgy. Like he has bad guy energy all about him, like he's the guy with all the money. I think is he like the mayor or something like that?
Yeah, that character's name is Slade, and as best as I can figure, he's sort of like the CEO of the pharmaceutical company. They're doing growth hormones. That's what it is. They're shooting these animals up with growth hormones, and that's what gets all mixed up with all the radiation down in the sewers, and that's why we had the tiny dog that grew to be ginormous when it was finally discovered. And so a lot of the animal testing they're doing is off the books. They're getting these animals illegally. There's like processes that you're supposed to go through with the Humane Society. And that's what Arthur is telling Robert Forster in that scene where he's kind of interrogating him. And he's like, no, we go through all the proper channels, the Humane Society. None of those animals could have come from this lab. No way, no how. So then, of course, he has to run to his boss to be like, oh, boss, I don't know what we're going to do. And the actor who's got that big dick energy, that's Dean Jagger. And he's sort of like the most villainous character, I think, of this whole thing. Like he's the worst. Like there is a mayor in this who is a douchebag, and he's in bed with Slade and his whole, company. But the mayor is kind of like most politicians. He's just very ineffectual. He's kind of a middleman for the rich folks doing whatever they want. Yeah, exactly. Just a yes man. He's more pathetic than anything else. This guy Slade is a real scumbag, but he's played so well because it's very movie scumbag, right? So it's almost comical. But he's like, son, we're gonna be fine. Don't talk to any of them journalists.
That's it. Now look at my dick while I sit in front of you. That's it. But yeah, you're exactly right. But Forster, we're back with Forster now, and he's doing some absolute cop shit. He's answering questions from reporters. He clearly doesn't want to be there. And then he's, answering questions, about the shit that's going on. But then we do get like a little bit of an insight into Forster's character. Now, not that it really needs to be there, but I suppose it really is almost there to set up some gross, like arrogant reporter, another person to die in the movie. That's what it sort of feels like. But we learned that Forster's backstory a little bit by basically he had a partner who was basically stabbed to death. Is that right? I think he had a partner who was stabbed to death.
He was actually shot, but the thing
That's
the reporter,
right, yes.
Kemp, the reporter does here is he asks a question he already knows the answer to.
That's right, yeah.
Force Robert Forster, detect his actual name in this is Madison. We may as well say that because we're going to say Robert Forster the whole time anyway.
Yeah, but I know that's my problem.
Yeah, we can't help it, right? But he's forcing him to say, "Oh yeah, my partner was shot." By asking, and he was stabbed, wasn't he? And it's a really cruel, kind of sick trick that he's pulling there, and he knows exactly what he's doing. It's a bit of a power play. And this is a neat character, this guy Kemp, because on the one hand, he's a douchebag, but he thinks he's being a douchebag for the right reasons. You know, he's a journalist, he's a reporter. He thinks that the cops are not giving us the whole story, and that's the truth. That's always the truth. He thinks that there's a killer on the loose, and the cops are bumbling the investigation, so they're not being honest about everything. And that's why he's being such a dick and running this down. But he's doing it in a douchebag way, right? Where he's just hitting Forster. And what I also like about that is it brings up Madison's past trauma, that he has this trauma of having lost a partner in the field to violence, because in the moment he got scared and he froze up, which is a very natural reaction any human would have. But he's a cop, he's a man, it's 1980. He doesn't think that's okay. And so he's been punishing himself and going through this guilt about that ever since. And he feels like everybody blames him, even though his own police chief, played wonderfully by Gazzo, was it Victor Gazzo, tells him like, hey man, nobody blames you for that. Okay. It could have happened to anybody. We're cops. We get into violent situations. Things happen. But he doesn't believe him. And so this kind of becomes a thing that's weighing on him throughout this movie. So he's not just fighting the alligator. He's fighting against himself.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, that's perfectly put. But yeah, you're exactly right. And it's funny as well because like it does like the more depth to the character of the reporter that you just said there, like is very true. And it's also funny at the same time where like you also have the thought inside you where you're like, I can't wait for him to die, because you know he's going to at the same time.
And he's making fun of our friend, you know, Robert Forster's our guy. You know,
I can't wait for him to get death rolled. Like that's how I feel about it. Yeah, exactly. But then after this, Forster now he needs to basically heads into the sewers to check something out. But at this point, nobody wants to go with him, which I'm assuming sort of leads into sort of like the conversation that we just had in the previous scene, where people are a little bit worried about being a partner with Forster on things because of everything, you know, what happened to his previous partner. So the only one that will go into the sewers with him is basically a 12-year-old cop who's like the youngest looking cop, who's trying to like age himself up by like, you know, the way that he's reacting, the way that he is and stuff like that. But he literally looks like he's about 12 or 13 years old.
Like Dennis the Menace on a pair of stilts and a police outfit. Oh, sure, I'll come with you into the sewers.
Yeah, you're exactly right. He's like Dennis the Menace, isn't he? Like a Dennis the Menace, a little bit grown up, who's decided to become a cop, and he still has the same attitude. But yeah, so once again, it's a little bit, it's a super weird, but one of the cops is talking to Forster again about his receding hairline. We get another moment where they're talking to Forster. And at this point, luckily now, you've made me feel a little bit better about it. But this was another moment where I kept getting really angry, because I'm like, this poor guy, leave him alone with his fucking, you know, his receding sort of like, you know, hairline. They're so horrible to him. But this cop even like talks to him about a hairdresser, and he's just like, oh, I've got a hairdresser. Like, what you want to do? He's like, he tells him what to do with his hair, and it's so weird. It's such a weird scene, because he's like, grow your hair out a little bit, grow your fringe and sweep it to the side, no one will know. And I'm like, it's such a strange scene, and it's such strange dialogue to have in a movie, irrelevant of knowing whether it's nice or not. But it's this weird little moments in the movie where you're like, why are they talking about this?
There's this energy in the film that I really love, and I feel like for some people this will take them out, but for me it's very charming. It's the kind of thing you sometimes see in like trauma movies or more wacky indie films, where we've got these character moments that are just kind of silly. We have stuff with this later with Marissa's mom. I think she's equally charming and just kind of a weird big character. And it's this little moment here where he's like, you know what? You gotta let it grow out, comb it over. No one will notice. And he's just kind of looking at him, partly like, do we have to talk about this right now? But also, maybe that's a good idea. I've never thought about that. It's like, it's all on his face in that moment.
Yeah, and you nailed it when you said, like, as soon as you said, like, trauma, it is a very, like, a trauma thing where you have, like, these very, like, off moments where you're like, what's happening here? Like, why is this happening in a movie like this, or something like that? But yeah, you're exactly right. Where you got the weird, but it's just such a weird. They keep on having these weird conversations about his hair in the movie, and I, as I said, I felt so sorry for him. But then we get to get to the scene where Forster and Child Cop are heading into the are going to head into the sewer. But then some really weird guy comes into the station. Basically, I think he says that he's killed someone, and then he's going to kill them with a bomb. Obviously, this guy's absolutely mental. The bomb that he's got is tied to him, and Forster is like playing it like the proper cool guy cop, like in the background, like blasé about it, like I don't give a fuck, like whatever. And then like before we know it, nick of time, saves the fucking day, like stops the bomb, and then everything's just normal again, like nothing, like it's just an everyday sort of like thing that happens at the station. But I do like the fact that how cool Forster's like playing it, and then before we know it, he fucking Liam Neeson's in and.
The only thing I'm confused about, and I've seen this movie many times, so it's weird to be confused about this. We learn that it's the timer's hooked up to a radio, right? Because they click the button thinking they're going to shut off the bomb or shut off the counter, and they realize it's hooked into just a radio. What I never understood is there actually dynamite strapped to this thing as well? Or is this guy just, he's just kind of knobbed off in his head, and he's put together this whole thing sort of for attention, but it was never actually going to explode. And we see the way they are under pressure, and then they realize, oh, this was never going to explode anyway. Put this asshole in a holding cell, stick that in evidence. We're going to need it later. Or is it a real bomb? And it's just that the guy had a radio as part of the part of the detonation device. And so it's just kind of silly that the guy improvised this whack-ass bomb. I still don't understand this, because later
right.
it's going to be important that we go back to get that counter and dynamite from the evidence room. But I've never known for sure if the dynamite was a separate thing that was just in the evidence room, or if it actually is a part of this bomb, and this thing really would have gone off if they hadn't done what they did.
Yeah, you are exactly right. That's interesting, isn't it? Because it doesn't play in the way that it's a real bomb because of their like sort of reaction to it. Like they play it as in this guy's a nut job, and then it's like that's how they do it, and the reaction to it where Forster, like you said, like he's like, oh, it's a radio, and obviously as I said, like literally Forster's leaning against the fucking door, like not giving a shit about it until he like gets pulled into action, and then they grab him and stuff. But yeah, that's interesting because you're right. Because obviously, of course, it like you're saying rightly, it plays a big part later on when he needs it. But they don't. Yeah, they don't necessarily play into or specify as much in regards to like the way that it's portrayed makes it feel he's more like a mental person that doesn't have a bomb on him than it is somebody that does have a bomb on it. So they should have, I'm with you, they probably should have clarified it more that it was a real bomb and not a radio and a crazy person that Forster had to Liam Neeson. But also still another fun scene, and we get to see Robert Forster just be, a cool badass. But then him and the child cop, as I said, they're heading to the sewer, and after a few fake outs, because we get the few fake outs in this sort of scene as well, where you think it's the alligator and then it's not. And child cop basically keeps on scaring the shit out of Forster as well. There's that moment where like he just scares the shit out of him, and Forster's not too happy about it because he grabs his ass. And that bit makes me laugh as well, because you think that it's obviously the alligator, but it's this child cop.
When they do the Jaws thing with like the POV, and it's approaching him, and the music, which is done by Craig Hundley, is the composer for the score. And I only bring it up because many times in this movie, I'm cueing into the music and I'm like, I guess that's legally distinct from John Williams' Jaws. It's not quite dun 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 dun, but it's like Vanilla Ice. Like it's only just a teensy bit different, or like the Reanimator taking from Psycho.
Yeah,
it's just like dun 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 dun.
Yeah, they just go through every moment in the score is the same apart from one key, and they're like, "That's fine. That's how that's how you get with it.
Can't sue us." But yeah, he comes up and grabs his ass, and again, it shows us that on the one hand, Robert Forster's more experienced. He's more damaged from this job in this life, and then his own trauma. He takes things more seriously and is a bit more careful, especially down in the sewers where they're literally pulling up body parts. This young cop, he's a kid, basically, he is having fun, and he probably thinks that he's safe because he's with Madison.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
there's
you're
things
right.
people say about Madison, but he's older, he's tough, he's Robert Forster. He won't let anything bad happen to me, and I think
And
that's also part
sadly,
of it.
yeah, and then sadly, after that little bit of fun of the arse grabbing, sadly the alligator does get child cop, and then but the alligator attacks child cop, but then they do both leg it, so they do manage to leg it, and as they're trying to escape, the alligator jumps up and grabs the child cop and then drags him away and presumably eats the absolute shit out of him, because there's a bit where they're like trying to get out. Is it like, I don't know if it's a manhole cover or something
Mhm.
like that, but they're trying to get out of it and it's locked, which obviously will come back later on as well in the movie. But yeah, we get that moment where it's like, and it's quite like, like vicious and ferocious as well. Like it's very like, it feels like there's something real about that moment, the reactions to it and so on. But yeah, so child cop, he's definitely dead. He's been eaten by the alligator. One of the people probably that you don't necessarily want to get eaten by an alligator in this movie is him, because he's not, a true piece of shit science nerd cutting up dogs and stuff.
Yeah, he's one of
Um,
the only sort of nice, quote unquote, nice people who get taken out by the gator. Lots of the gator's victims are actually douches, which is part of what makes the movie fun, I think.
yeah,
But like,
yeah,
it's really traumatic. He's got him by his hand. He's holding him. It's like, don't let go of me, man. But that gator's way too strong, and he's got him by the leg, and he yanks him right out of his hand. So it's like cliffhanger or something. He has to watch as this kid is just ripped from his grip,
yeah.
and then he's finally able to get up out of the manhole. And I do want to mention that we establish lots of important things that are going to matter more later get established in this sequence. And part of what gets established is there's all these pockets of methane gas buildup in the sewers. So they can't just go down there. They have to go down there with gas masks in case they run into these pockets of methane. And that's going to become important later.
Yeah, you're exactly right. But after this bit, Forster, he wakes up, basically he's in hospital, and he wants to get straight back down there. There's a couple times when, Forster's topless in this, probably part of his contract. But,
Looks good.
and then, yeah, he does look
Looks
good.
good. It makes
He
me want
looks
to do some
lean.
sit-ups.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. He looks lean and mean. But then the douchey reporter from earlier on, he's back to cause shit. And I mean, you sort of like at some point you're like, he's either going to get punched by Forster, or as it always happens, or he's going to get eaten. But now here we get the introduction to someone else, because now some beautiful science lady is playing with a snake. And I mean an actual snake, not anything else, not Forster snake, not yet anyway. And they're asking questions again about what the shit is going on. And of course, we know at some point they're definitely going to bang. Like, there's nothing. It's a bit like, Adkins in Halloween 3. You know that he's going to end up banging this woman that he's hanging around with. And in this one, if you've got Forster and a lady in it, you know that the sex is going to happen.
Well, that's
But
the
not
thing, right?
just yet.
If this is a Jaws clone, right? Then Madison Forrester, he's our Chief Brody. She's our science expert, so she's the Hooper. So this would
Yeah,
be like if Brody and Hooper got it on in the boat.
yeah. Which is a completely different movie. That's Brokeback Jaws,
Brokeback Jaws, very so good. Produced by
it's
Pop Rocks and Dynamite. I'm telling you, we're gonna have a whole line of movies. People won't know
going to be a
what
full
genre we're doing.
multimedia company of everything. There we go. So the douche reporter is now, we get our sort of moment, because he's down in the sewer taking photos, and then you can't help sort of look forward to what's going to happen, and when it does happen to him, it is glorious, where he gets full on attack, and then it almost is a little bit like it's a little bit like Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake sort of thing, where they're like the flashes are going off, and it adds to like the horror element to it, because like you're like, oh, okay, not only is it like pretty horrifying that he's getting attacked and mauled and probably once again death rolled by an alligator, which is great, but you know that the photos are going to come back, and
And
once again it's so cleverly put together.
it creates this really cool, creepy strobe light effect, and there is something so fucking metal about a
Yeah,
guy. He's
yeah,
he's a he's a photojournalist, right? He's also taking all of his own pictures for his own reporting. So as he's being devoured by the beast, he refuses to stop taking pictures. He keeps
yeah.
going right up until the end. And I mean, I know this guy's a douche of a character, but I respect that. That is metal.
Yeah, like he's going down fighting, like, he's going down with what he loves, he's going to take these photos no matter what. And it works. So that's good. But we get to that. But Forster, he gets a phone call about the douche reporter, and then they managed to retrieve the camera, as I said, that he was taking pictures with. And of course, there's pictures of the alligator. And now finally, they actually start to believe Forster, because at this point, they're like, whatever, you're bloody being mental. But then obviously once they see the photos of the alligator on them, they do actually start to believe him. Also, there is a quick interview on the news with a beautiful science lady who's adamant that it's an alligator as well. But of course, like, we already know that as a viewer, but once again, it's like the hesitation for them to be like, oh, it is a giant fucking alligator that's doing it. And it's now really sort of like to the point now where they're like, oh, we know that it is now. But also, she does have that thing where she's basically is almost like saying it's not going to be big, like it's not going to be a big alligator, and like obviously, like, what fuck does she know?
Well, that's the thing, right? So this is Dr. Kendall. This is Marissa, who is played by what's it, Riker, Robin Riker, and in the first scene where he is trying to tell them what he saw, both the police Chief Clark, and that's funny to me because Clark is a very big street in the city of Chicago. Like, that's a huge street. So it's just kind of funny that the chief's name is Clark. They both are telling him, are you sure that's what you saw? I mean, hey man, people hallucinate all the time. Like, it's proper gaslighting. They're just trying to tell him, you're crazy. What you saw, there's no way you saw. Now, I can understand where she's coming from because this is a completely heretofore unseen situation, right? A giant alligator that's been growing for 12 years, eating like growth hormones and radiation and other like poison things that have just gotten it not only huge, but with an insatiable hunger. That's the stuff of movies. So it makes, from what she knows about actual science, it makes no sense that this could happen. So yeah, she doesn't believe it at first, but then when she sees the photographic evidence, she's like, nope, there's no doubt. We were wrong. He was right. It's a fucking gator. But even then, she doesn't know about the growth hormones. And so all she thinks about is how tight and confined it is down in the sewers. It wouldn't make sense for a gator to grow that big, especially when they don't even grow to like full wildlife size when they're in captivity. And so she keeps kind of saying, well, yeah, it's a gator, but there's no way it's this big.
What the fuck does she know?
She will learn she's wrong. And I love this
absolutely.
about her as a scientist. She's open to the possibility that she's wrong. Once she gets evidence that she's wrong, she goes, oh, fuck, I was wrong. Okay, sorry about that. Let's move forward.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're exactly right. But then now, of course, with people now like more so on board, knowing that there is a giant bloody alligator, the army have turned up, the police have turned up, armed with massive shotguns, fucking bazookas. They're all ready to go down into basically war. They're going down into the sewer, down to basically, and also they're making a shitload of noise, because obviously it draws out the alligator apparently. It always reminds me of that little bit in Ghostbusters where he's tapping the piano and it's like, oh, they hate that. That's what this bit reminds me of, where they're smashing the walls and stuff like that. As I say, to draw out the alligator. Sexy science lady, she's down there. Where we find out that she was the kid at the start of the movie that absolutely loves blood. And then also she was, because she goes, oh, I used to have an alligator and something like that, and his name was Ramon, and we're like, this is the fucking alligator. This is Ramon, and it's all coming together.
I'm so embarrassed to admit that I think it was the third time I saw the movie before I realized, oh, she's the girl from the beginning. Okay. Because it is just this one little conversation between the two of them. It's just a few lines. So if you're not paying attention during that one little conversation, you'll never hear about it again. And I have to admit, the first couple times I saw the movie, I totally missed that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. There is it's a very quick sort of moment where like they're just having the conversation. Also, Forster couldn't give a fucking shit about her at this point as well. He's like, so like, I'm just about the job. That's all that matters. I couldn't care about how beautiful you are. That like their job right now is to get this alligator. And yeah, you're exactly right. It's very quickly like put in there that essentially like you find out she's the kid, and this alligator is going to be bloody giant Ramon now. Also, there's when at the end of this scene, They've gone in there with all of this stuff to start a war with an alligator. Nothing happens. They can't bloody find it. So the alligator got away with that one, luckily. But then, very quickly after that, after we get the army and the police with their shotguns and bazookas, some kids are playing street baseball, and then we get a truly iconic scene where one of them's wearing a Freddy Krueger jumper, which I thought was quite fun. We get some classic practical effects where the alligator bursts through the pavement and scares the absolute shit out of the kids, and it looks incredible. I truly love it. There are people out there that are going to look at it and like, you can see how it's done right, especially like today and stuff, but it doesn't take anything away from how incredible it looks. And also, I love how it's edited in that moment, because they're blending between what's happening and the kids that are running away and all the shit that's happening on the street, but with the alligator at the same time. The editing is really selling not just obviously the size of it, but the practical effects are selling the size of it. And it's just one of those scenes that works really well together, and it looks absolutely incredible. Like, we even get like one of my favorite shots in this movie. There are a couple things, like when I get to my overall thoughts, I think I've got a couple shots that stand out to me, but I love the fact that we almost have like a GoPro shot. That's what it feels like on the alligator, where we have like an onboard like point of view shot of the that's it, like the alligator like going through. It looks so good, and I like, every time I watch this movie, I'm like, man, that looks so fucking cool.
I really enjoy it. I think when you watch it, you need to, respect the fact that this was 1980 and
Yeah,
this isn't a major motion picture. I mean, they had money, but they didn't have money. So they
yeah,
needed to do this the best way they could. And I think it looks fantastic when you consider all of that. They make great use of miniatures and blending, kind of, cutting between the real scene and the miniature that is supposed to represent it. I think little animatronic stuff. They do little things with like a big, as you mentioned, the big headpiece that looks really good, but that's kind of what they had to work with. So like they had to hook the camera in a certain way, but then they had the tail piece and they use that for little tail whip moments. They use all of the tricks of the trade to make this illusion sell. And I think it absolutely sells, at least if you're on board for I'm going to say it again, for what the movie is selling.
yeah. It looks. I mean, when I watched it the other day, and I'll talk about like what I watched it on later on and stuff, and why people like need to see it on these sort of versions and stuff. But it looks so good, and I love that this scene is very much like you said as well. There are scenes in it that go like from like they go to 11 so quickly, and it's so fucking wild, and this is one of those like scenes that does it. But what I love about it is that we've got like you got the kids playing, it gets all fucked up because the alligator's out. You get these great shots of this alligator like destroying stuff, and then a fucking cop car ends up like fucking, there's a guy like there's a cop car that basically like does a death roll almost. It rolls, and then it's on fucking fire, and then the alligator eats the shit out of this cop, and it's just one of those scenes like it keeps on escalating and escalating. So not only do I like love it on a technical level, and like you're saying exactly right, where they are literally like every trick in the book they're doing, but they do it like so expertly that it makes it work, and it looks so good. But it's just, as a scene itself, it just keeps on escalating and escalating until we've got fire, cops getting eaten, and it's just so fucking good. And it's one of those scenes where you're reminded of how good some of these movies are, because you're like, they're just so much fun, there's so much charm, and I get so much enjoyment about watching scenes like this in movies because it's so good.
It becomes chaos so quickly once that gator bursts out of the sewer and the kids playing stickball in the street. We got the like you said, the cop crash. The cop gets his legs straight up ripped off. The kids are all trying to kill the gator. So the one kid goes running into his apartment, and his mom's on the phone with a beer and a cigarette, and he's like yelling, "Mom, there's an alligator. There's really an alligator." And she gets right in his face, and she's like, "Shut up, I'm on the phone." it's just loud chaos. And he grabs a knife and he goes running out of the apartment. I love this too. there's just something so perfect about this. She acts as if because she's on the phone, she can't run after her child who's just grabbed a giant knife and gone running out the door. She starts to go after him, but then stops because the phone cord won't go any further
Yeah,
and goes
yeah.
back to her conversation like, oh my God, Gladys, this kid's driving me crazy. He just took a knife and went running down the hall. I
Yeah,
can't be
and it's
bothered to
also
parent right now.
no, and it's also a little bit like you mentioned earlier on, where it's those little like almost trauma-esque moments. Once again, like you were saying earlier, like there's the weird little moments in this movie that like they sort of almost feel out of place, but they don't feel out of place because they add to the charm of what the movie is. And that's why it doesn't matter whether it makes sense or not, because it's just fucking fun. But yeah, this scene is just another example of just how good this movie is. But the alligator, he does get away, and in the aftermath, sexy science lady is starting to realize that of course she completely underestimated the size of this alligator. She's like, I fucked up. But now arrogant, we get an introduction to another person, because we get an arrogant big game hunter turned up. He's here to basically handle business. He's also a little bit of a pervert and a little bit weird. But this guy turns up.
He's big time weird.
Yeah, and I like the fact that he's weird as well. Like, I like the fact like because he's like he is arrogant and he is a bit of a perv, which is quite standard, like sort of like this sort of thing. But the guy that plays him, like, I don't know whether he's like a guy that's a bit weird in real life. I don't know whether they hired him as him to be that sort of person. I don't know, but his character is so like weird and off to what normal like big game hunters are in like movies and stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Henry Silva is the actor we're talking about. His character's Colonel Brock in this, and he's kind of like the Quint character, right? Because he's this big game hunter who's hunted all these huge animals, and so the mayor, in conjunction with Slade, they hire him so they can say, like, see, we're doing something about this. We're gonna get this guy to come in and kill the gator. We're not going through the police because we hired this guy, so he'll do what we say, right? And he'll take care of it. This actor in American films, he was in a lot of them, and he always played like a bad guy, what we call the heavy, right? And it's because he's kind of a tall dude. He's got kind of a severe face, he's got that kind of darkness behind the eyes. But in Europe, he also had a film career because this guy could speak Spanish and Italian fluently as well as English. And so he had a film career in Italy and I think also in Spain. And in those movies, he got to play more of a hunky lead, more of a hero. Well, yeah, again, 70s, 60s and 70s.
I suppose.
And more of a lead, more of a charming, heroic kind of a character. Still maybe with a little bit of darkness about him, but definitely the good guy. And so it's neat because depending on what coast you're on, this actor was making lots of movies, but completely different kinds of characters. And so, yeah, he was game. He was game to just do whatever goofy shit they wanted, talking on that. If you want to hold off talking to the reporter, doing the gator mating call in her face.
Yeah, I know. It's like that's such an odd scene, but also, like I said, like that's the thing with movies like this and all these like deep cut cult classic horrors and stuff. There is so much. When you get the really good ones and like the ones I've recommended and stuff like that in the past, there is so many reasons as to why there's so much charm about them. And some of that charm comes from the characters or the things that don't make sense, the things that don't need to be there. And if you take them out, well, then it doesn't work as well as it does or it doesn't stand out as much as it does because it doesn't have those extra things that don't need to be there, or the characters don't need to be fucking weird doing alligator calls. And you're sitting there and you're like, what the fuck is going on? But then you're like, I love this, like, because it makes it so much good. It's so much more fun. But we're now back with Forster. He's trying to crack the case, but as all this is sort of like is all happening, we get fucking dodgy guy from earlier who, alpha man who's trying to show his dick to everyone. He's not trying to show his dick to everyone, but he's trying to alpha everyone. He's not.
He wants everybody to know he's in charge. He's got the most money, the most swagger. He's in charge.
Yeah, absolutely. But he basically cottons on to everything that Forster's doing, and he makes a call into the chief. And then Forster, as he's speaking to the chief, he's chucked off the force. He gets fired, and you're like, oh, holy shit. But then before that, he does, and like you mentioned earlier with the guy with the bomb, or whether it was a real bomb or not, which they should have definitely clarified a bit more. He goes into, before he leaves the station after getting fired, he sneaks into the evidence room and he steals the dynamite. That's just on the shelf, as you do, like not in a box or in a safety thing. It's just on the shelf.
Yeah,
You know,
it's just
I
an
mean,
evidence room. It had a little tag on it, like you do with like library books. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I know. I suppose I've never been into an evidence room in a police office, especially in the 80s, 70s or 80s. So
Oh, you
maybe
got
they
to. It's
just
loads of fun. There's weapons. There's
all they
drugs.
need.
You can take
Although
anything.
they did just need some pop rocks next to it, and then there we go.
See, perfect image, and we could have made a little thumbnail out of that.
Oh
I
well, I will now. I will now. Don't you worry. I'll make some pop rocks and dynamite images.
bloody well
There
better.
we go.
But that's
But
all it takes, right? Because we've got a blood sample, and Dr. Kendall does her sexy doctor thing, and she finds that there's growth hormones and shit in here, and that helps account for how this thing is so big. They take a footprint, right? That they're able to get a footprint mold from when the gator was out and about, and they are able to kind of extrapolate the size. They talk to that little bastard Joey, whose mom apparently hadn't beaten him so bad that he couldn't talk yet. And he tells him it's as big as an El Dorado. And I love when they go, the car? And he goes, no, a refrigerator. What do you think? Yeah, man, a car. You're telling me the gator was the size of a car? Well, without the tail. You put on the tail, it's even longer. It's like, holy fucking shit. How big of a gator are we dealing with here? And then so when they go to kind of strong arm Slade in that pharmaceutical company, that's all it takes. One phone call to the mayor, and boom, he is kicked off the force. So we immediately see the corruption inherent in the system here.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. But then Forster, he's now going to see Sexy Science Lady and tell her what happened. And then they both now, at this point, they both head into the sewer. But then basically nothing really happens too much here, apart from the fact that she gets scared shitless by a manky dog, because some of those manky dogs that the guy from earlier shut down there, they're there. But we're at some kids' birthday party where they're playing pirates and walk the plank. And what we saw as well, I forgot to mention, but we did see a little bit earlier where the alligator got away from like the bazookas and guns and stuff. It gets away and then it basically goes hiding out in a pool.
And that was the thing.
Garden.
She says it right there. Like, he's gonna look for water after everything that's happened. He needs a place with water. That's where we got to go. And we, the audience, know that he's found a backyard swimming pool to chill out in, which is just a chilling image when you look at it from like a top view looking down.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite things, and this might only be funny if you're from Chicago, is when the chief is talking about how hard it's going to be to track him down, just saying, oh, look for water. He goes, we got rivers, we got canals, we got that lake over there. That lake over there, Lake Michigan, is basically the eastern border for the entire city of Chicago. I mean, I'm oversimplifying, but it's like when you first move here, when you're learning how to get oriented, you're like, oh, the lake is east. No matter where you are in the city, the lake is east. That's how fucking big this lake is. And for him to say, we got that lake over there. Oh my God. I started laughing so hard. And I was like, I don't know if as many people are going to find that as funny as I find it.
It's like one of those things for the for people from Chicago. They're like, oh, that's funny. I get it.
Yeah.
That's it. But we're at this bit actually is bit fucked up as well, because obviously like the alligator's in the thing, and you don't know whether it's going to be one of those moments where, because they're playing like walk the plank, they're playing pirates and stuff like that, and the kid falls in the water, and you just almost think like it's going to be one of those moments where he makes it out just in time. You know what I mean? Like, they can't kill a kid. The blue water turns fucking red quickly, and the kid gets fucking killed by the alligator, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, it's so, I mean, it's one of those things where you can't, like, you don't want to laugh, but then you're like, almost like, especially like, this is one of those movies, like, when you've seen it loads, like we do with these movies like this, and this is a movie that I watch all the time, you know, like, you know, the enjoyment never ends, but you know those moments. But it is one of those things when you see it for the first time, you're like, fucking hell, they just killed a kid.
It's so funny because in Jaws, the Kittner boy is the one who gets killed, and that's kind of a big event that makes us go, oh shit, this is for real. He's not the first person to die, but it's the thing that makes you kind of really get the main character, the Chief Brody, invested. In this movie, that kill is Kelly, the young cop. That's the one that really affects him emotionally, and us too. This kill, this little kid, it's just a moment for us to jump up in our chairs and go, holy shit, they killed
Yeah,
a kid?
yeah,
And
yeah, it
then
doesn't even
we move
matter.
on.
It means nothing. It's just they killed a kid and that's it, and nothing matters. But yeah, you're exactly right. And then we move straight after, which is a bit weird, from going to killing kids to the moment that we sort of knew was going to happen, the moment we were waiting for. Um, but basically, sexy science lady, she heads back to Forster's shag pad, as they would have called it maybe in the 60s and 70s. And he's pretty forward with her, and she absolutely bloody loves it. He's basically like, "Are we gonna fuck?" And she doesn't tell him no. I mean, she pretty much tells him yes. But then they're lying in there in bed. And when she's got her boobs out, we get another instance regarding his receding hairline, because she's doing it again, even in bed. Like, they're having, or I can't remember if they've had it or gonna have sex, a game of sex. She plays with his hair and looks at it, and you're like, this poor guy. But once again, with me not knowing that, I'm just like, everybody's been a dick to Forrester, but this poor guy. But of
Yeah.
course, he's left it in there. He's been like, no, it's fine, you can do it.
Yeah, he's in on it, you know. It's kind of a cute moment because what I like about that is that I don't think she says anything about his
No,
hair.
she just,
She's
yeah.
just looking, and since she's looking at it, he immediately assumes that that's what it's about, and he starts talking about his insecurities, and she smiles because it's fucking cute.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
They're both being
yeah.
kind of vulnerable together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're exactly right. And then here we get a scene where we get the weird hunter guy, the big game hunter guy. He's now out on the streets. He's basically got some of like the people that are around that live on the streets, around the area. He's got them, and he's basically paying them to show him around, sort of like they know the area. He doesn't. He's paying them to show him around. But then we head to an alleyway, and of course, none of them want to go down there apart from him. And I think one of them does anyway. But we see that we see the alligator's eye. The alligator is watching his every move once again. And as the weird hunter guy, he heads down the alleyway. We get what is like probably my favorite shot in the movie. And basically, it's a shot where the hunter guy, he gets eaten, but we get a really cool shot where we get the guy that's gone down the alleyway with him is sort of like standing there in shot, but we get a really wide shot where we see this massive alligator with the hunter in his mouth, and it's such a really, really cool shot. Like the way that obviously we got a wide angle view finally of this alligator eating the shit out of it. It looks fantastic, and I remember watching it for my prep the other night. I was like, "That's a fucking cool shot." But he's bloody dead already.
No, it looks great. He's just gobbling him up. And the other thing I love about this character is there's a lot of buildup to who this guy is and what he's gonna do. And he's here for what, 2 scenes before the gator's
Yeah,
like, "Fuck you, pal. You're not worthy of this. I'm gonna eat you
yeah.
right now."
Yeah, exactly. He turns up and he's just like, I'm trying to be, like the big game hunter, arrogant guy. Then I'm going to do some weird alligator mating calls, and then I'm going to get chomped up by an alien, by an alligator, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I love it. But yeah, that shot is just such a fucking beautiful looking shot, and it looks great. And of course, like the practical effect side of it as well. Like it doesn't like stand out where you're like that looks shit. It looks really cool still. But then after that, Forster and Sexy Science Lady, here's the moment where Forster is actually a bit of a dick. And then I almost wish that this bit wasn't in the movie, but then as I said, he redeems himself for apologizing as well. But basically, they're out grabbing dinner, and Forster, as I said, he's doing like almost like that sort of typical man thing in the movies that they do, where he's like brushing her off, like, we've just had sex, I've got what I want, and now you can fuck off, basically. And I've almost don't like it for him, for his character. But I'm happy that they obviously, after this, he does have like his his redemption arc, so to speak, of this moment. But I feel like it feels a little bit off for him. But I could be wrong. But it was the moment where I was just like, why is he being a dick?
Well, I wrote down Madison ruins a good thing with Kendall by being a man. And
yeah, you're right. Yeah,
it's something that I do try to put in context. I mean, so if this guy is an adult in 1980, okay, that means he was growing into a man in the 50s, right? 50s into the 60s. And he's got all this trauma and all this guilt from the people he couldn't save. And while the two of them were back at his shag pad having a nice, cute time together, somebody else was getting mutilated by that alligator. And it was somebody that he didn't even like, but it creates all these complex emotions within him. Now, you or me with a partner that we were just vulnerable with, we might open up about that. We might talk about why we're feeling all bad and kind of mixed up, because on the one hand, there's guilt and there's failure, but we're not done yet. But I didn't even like that guy. All these, all these different emotions. We might talk about that. That's not who he is. He's not comfortable doing that. He closes off. And when she tries to make a connection, he pushes her back because he's afraid. And he's like, hey, no, don't try to understand me too quick, okay? Like, give me some space. And he's being abrasive and bristly, because that's how men back then were socialized to deal or not deal with their complex emotions. And so on the one hand, it makes sense, but yeah, it's an ugly side to his character. And it's something that I feel the movie, it's like if it were real life, we would need to take more time with this. But because it's this movie, we need to just hit it, get to the next thing, get to him apologizing, and move the fuck on.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Because here as well, we get like straight after that happens, we get like a scene where there's like a weird slow-mo dream sort of sequence he's having where he's like seeing like it feels like it feels a little bit out of place, but you sort of get it once again with the trauma of everything the Forster character is going through. But then after that slow-mo sort of dream sequence, and I think it's like basically everything's red, and it's like he's having a dream sequence of like the kid that died earlier on, the 12-year-old cop, and he's basically having a dream about that sort of thing. But then that's when he does go back over, and he basically he goes and sees the sexy science lady, and then basically he completely like apologizes to her. And I do like the fact that like 1 minute he's a dick and then he does apologize to her, and you're like, Forster's back, I get it, I'm on his side again, like he hasn't been a typical man who's got what he wanted. He's back with it. But then once after this happens, the police are bloody back. They're back around, and they've got these big boats and everything like that. And then they see the alligator in the water, so they start shooting at it. But like a bunch of absolute like arses, basically they somehow drive right into the alligator. Like, this is such a wild moment. But they see the alligator, they start trying to shoot the shit out of it, and somehow drive the boat over the alligator, which sends the boat like absolutely flying, which is obviously absolutely hilarious. And then the grenade, somebody tries to throw a grenade, but of course where it hits the alligator, it's a bit like almost a comedy, this moment, where like the grenade doesn't go off, but it's in the boat or whatever, and then it blows up the boat, which means loads of the cops and stuff like that, they fall into the water. And then, of course, we know what's going to happen. There's going to be more death rolling and stuff like that.
Eating frenzy!
Yeah, absolutely. But it is one of those moments, like I said, like in this movie, that I love it when they have moments that just go to 11 out of the fucking blue. And it's just like, here we are. We've got boats with cops and stuff like that on it. They're going to fucking go over an alligator. It's going to go flying. There's going to be fire. There's going to be explosions. There's going to be death rolls. And yeah, it's once again, it's one of those moments where you're like, yeah, this film is so fucking fun. It's absolutely hilarious.
I love the director for this, because there's all these moments of chaos. And we've got car crashes that then explode. We've got boat crashes that then explode. We got limbs of cops getting ripped off by this gator. We have that great moment. I mean, it's not a good aquatic monster movie if you don't have a moment of somebody trying to get pulled up into the boat and their legs are still in the water. And then when they finally get them out, their legs have been chopped off. So, and so, we've got real amputee stand-ins for those moments. So in this moment where it looks like someone's leg was bitten off, it's because that actor has no leg. And it looks so good. It looked good in 1980. It looks good in 2026.
Yeah, you're right. When I watched it the other night, I was just like, that looks so fucking cool. And also, we do get that almost Jaws-esque moment here as well, because we get more of the underwater Jaws sort of shots here with the alligator as well, where it like a lot of the movie, that's one of the things. I mean, I'll save that for when I get to like overall thoughts, but I love the fact that this movie, apart from like we talking about when it comes to like the questionable music and this moment where it's coming up, It does try and stay away from the stigma and the shadow of what Jaws is, and I really love that about this movie, which I'll get into as well. But this is the moment where it feels like it's going full Jaws, where they're like, it's a fucking alligator underwater. We're gonna get underwater shots because we have to, and it looks really, really cool. But then we go from that, and obviously, people, I mean, it looks great. It is great. The dodgy old guy from earlier on, he's throwing a fancy party, and we get such a fucking incredible scene.
More
Once again,
chaos.
it's a movie where we think we've seen, I mean, this goes to like, we've got 11. This is going up to 12, 13, whatever, because it's so fucking cool. But he's got basically a thing, and of course, they're doing barbecue, and guess what alligators love? Barbecue. So this big fucking alligator turns up and is causing absolutely fucking chaos. He eats one of the mates, sends another person flying with his tail. There's loads of really cool shots of his tail, like flicking, like basically smashing the shit out of someone, and they go fucking flying. It's great.
Yeah, man. I've been talking about how we're in the age of eat the rich cinema, and
yeah.
Alligator was doing it back in 1980. We're eating a lot of rich motherfuckers in this sequence.
Yeah, you're right. And it's just, but once again, and like you rightly said earlier as well, this is like another scene where he's a perfect example of everything's in the basket, like they are doing every trick in the book. We get more cool shots of the point of view of the alligator. We get loads of awesome shots of the alligator's tail, like fucking smashing the shit out of people. This scene's really bloody as well. There's so much fucking blood in this scene as well. Like, it's not like where they're trying to go for a PG or whatever, like they're not trying to dumb this movie down, like try and have as little blood. This is like pure horror. Like, this is like chomping into fucking stuff, and it's a great scene. But what is another great thing about this movie is that it has those scenes that start off absolutely gnarly, and then they keep fucking going, and it doesn't stop. Like, it's instantly insane, and then it keeps going and keeps going. People fucking like I said, flying fucking everywhere. We get amazing shots of like an alligator and like thing, and then the dodgy guy from earlier, the rich guy, who's basically running fucking everything.
Yeah, Slade.
Yeah, that's it, Slade. He locks himself inside of a car, thinking that that's going to help, which absolutely doesn't. And then he lives like this bloody guy outside the front who gets eaten to shit. And once again, really
that was
brutal.
The mayor.
That's it. That's the mayor. That's
the mayor,
yeah.
that he won't let in the car, and he like locks him out as if the gator's right there, and the gator's not even close to them yet. He's like, let me in the car. He's like, nope. And like, it's like another 20, 30 seconds, maybe more, before the gator finally shows up and just starts killing the fuck out of the mayor. And he's just sitting inside the car like, yep, it's the only thing I could have done.
There was nothing I could do. I could do nothing to save him.
So not only does the mayor get completely wasted right outside that limo, but also his new son-in-law, because this isn't just a garden party. This is the wedding for Slade's daughter and that douchebag science nerd from earlier, Arthur. He's going to be his son-in-law. That's part of why he's so chummy, buddy with him.
That's right, yeah.
And he gets completely wasted by the alligator too, so that's what you get for fucking with puppies. But then the gator just goes to town. Ramon goes to town on that limo. He just smashes the fuck out of that car. And I don't know if you've ever like actually watched people demolish a car without the use of like a big car crushing machine, when it was just like people with hammers and big ass things. That takes a lot of time. That takes a lot of smashing. Like, it's not easy. Cars are not built to just bust up like that. So the way they shoot this and the way they edit it, I think, is really impressive, because they create this illusion so well. And the dude gets crushed inside his own car by that fucking gator. The blood's just leaking out. It looks great.
It's like oozing out of the fucking door, the car door and stuff. And yeah, once again, it's great, and everybody's absolutely definitely dead. And it's such an amazing scene. Like, it's a truly, like, the thing is for me, it's like, it's an iconic scene. But the sad part is that this is a movie that isn't known as iconic, because it's not, once again, it's an underappreciated gem. It is a movie that hasn't been seen enough. And like I always say and talk about all the time, it's the type of movie that like we need in horror more than ever. And these are the types of scenes that make horror really what it is. And I don't know, I mean, I absolutely love this scene. But we're not too far from where we end in the movie now, because of course we've had a huge piece there where the alligators absolutely smashed the shit out of everything and killed everyone. But Forster and Sexy Science Lady turn up, and they now know that the alligator is heading back to the sewer. So Forster goes after him with the dynamite from earlier that we just left there in the evidence room. No security or anything like that. He sees the alligator that's heading towards him, and he opens fire, but he's not going to do anything against this absolutely massive beast. He sets up the dynamite and the timer for 2 minutes, but then immediately gets hit by the massive tail of this alligator, but manages to climb upwards. A bit like earlier on where we had the scene with him and the child cop, Dennis the Menace cop. But but that's it. But we had him earlier on, and we get that sort of scene, a replication of that scene again, where the alligator's trying to get him, and the timer is running out, like super running out, as it always does in these sort of movies. Like, is Forster gonna get out in time? Of course, he does with the alligator. Force, the clock runs down. Forster gets out, but also the way that he gets out is quite funny, because Sexy Science Lady, she's going off to basically, he's like, I'm going to get out here. You've got to come here and help me or whatever. But then he's trying to get out this manhole like he was earlier, but a car is parked over it. And once again, it is almost one of those little trauma moments like you were mentioning earlier on, where like this woman has no idea what she's going on about. And she doesn't want to help at all. This woman that's in the car. So, like, Sexy Science Lady, she's like, get the fuck out, like, fucking move. And she's going absolutely mental. But finally, she does. She basically pushes this woman to the side, drives this woman's car, and then Forster gets out just in time. And obviously, everything blows up. Also, fucking awesome explosion. I love an explosion in a movie.
Great explosions in this. Real pyrotechnics. Gimme, gimme, gimme. They all look great. And they still look great.
Yeah, they look absolutely amazing. And then, of course, as I said, like Forster, he gets out in the nick of time. It looks absolutely bloody gorgeous. And then surely, well, it's all over. Well, you would think so, because some other absolute son of a bitch has flushed another alligator down the toilet. Because, of course, we've got to have a sequel, right?
We got to have a mutation, baby. I
also,
you want to talk about a great shot. I love that shot. It's not the last shot of the movie. It's almost the last shot of the movie, where the camera is down in the manhole and it's looking up through the manhole as Robert Forster and Robin Riker are looking down, and they kind of close the lid.
Yes.
It just looks great. I love that.
Yeah, it looks, really cool. I mean, this movie is full of it. I mean, so that's the entirety of the movie. That's the run through of everything that happens in the movie. Of course, general conversation wise, have you got anything general conversation? We're going to like production info and facts. We do them after this, but this is just like, if we've left anything out that you wanted to talk about, now's your time.
Yeah, there is the scene where he goes back to meet with Marissa and apologize. But before talking to her, he spends, I don't know how much time in the kitchen just chit-chatting with her mom and charming her mom.
That's right, yeah.
And I did not write down this actress's name, but I love this performance. I think she's so silly and so big and so charming. And I just really wanted to highlight how, he kind of gets in good with the mom. Then he's able to have, hey, I'm sorry, let's have some makeup sex. And then they're back on the hunt. They're like, we're going to go get that gator. We just had some sex. We're feeling top of the world. Let's go get that gator.
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, you're right. I didn't mention her, but you're exactly right. She's such a lovable character, isn't she? That you're like, once again, it's like, does she need to be there? No. But is it good that she's there? Yeah, I like her, and it's good that she's in it. But yeah, is there anything else? Before I go into production info, have you got anything else?
I don't think so. I mean, just there were little quotes that we kind of jump past that I like. Like, I love it when the chief is talking to him after they've met her for the first time. And he's like, God, spending time with snakes and reptiles, man, what, you think that's normal? I didn't say she was normal. I said she had the word on alligators. Vincent Gavo is like my favorite. I fucking love that guy.
Yeah, he's the guy that's like the almost the comic sort of relief of the movie, isn't he? Where he's got like the little moments where he's saying the funny little things, and he feels like very much like the classic sort of like cook chief sort of thing, like cop chief and so on. But yeah, he's great. Well, production info wise as well, because I know that you've got some as well, and hopefully I haven't got all the same ones. So I'll do mine first. But of course, the film was inspired by Jaws. Of course, we know that. And guess what? We like that movie. But like that movie, the mechanical villain of it, of course, Bruce the Shark, often malfunctioned, and that was much like this movie as well, because director Lewis Teague either shot around the giant alligator to build suspense or shot a normal sized alligator on miniature sets. Because of course in Jaws, I mean, one of the reasons we see so little of him because he never fucking worked, and so he had to shoot around it. And I think like a lot of movies did from that point, from Jaws and from what they had to do, and basically show him less. It was such a great way of building suspense, but also not showing off the full size of what this sort of like this big beast, this big monster is. And they do that obviously in Alligator as well. So when we do get this, like to actually see how big this alligator is, it pays off better rather than giving it to you all straight away and so on like that. So I think it's a big lesson learned from Jaws that so many other movies do afterwards, but it builds up the suspense well, and it makes things look great. But yeah, like we're saying, like, you know, it did so much incredible practical effect work on this movie, and it shows on screen. The other one that I've got is after Robert Forster's death, the Breaking Bad star Bryan Cranston tweeted that he and Forster, who also worked on Breaking Bad, for the first met on the set of this film, where Cranston was a production assistant for the special effects department. So that's cool.
I never knew that. That's so cool.
Yeah, so that's really cool. And the shot of the SWAT team emerging from the sewers in the film looks so real, the one where they fucking got nothing, but it looks so real that people actually thought they were terrorists, and some of them even called the police. So they probably got in some fucking trouble doing that. But that's what I've got.
I'm just glad nobody like grabbed a gun out of their own fucking place and started shooting at them out of their window.
Shit.
Like, who are these fuckers? I'll get them.
Yeah,
we're gonna call the cops. The cops will never get here in time. Come on now.
Yeah, thank God that didn't happen. But what have you got? Any different ones?
I've got a short list, a little handful of interesting things about this movie. I'll crank through as quick as I can here.
Cool.
So the original story that inspired this whole thing, because as we talked about, there's like an old wives' tale about gators getting flushed into the sewers when they're little and then growing really, really big. Well, in 1935, this actually happened. There was a gator that was 6 feet long in New York City that crawled out of a sewer while a bunch of boys were in the street shoveling snow. And this scared the shit out of the kids. Sad ending to the story. They got a rope, they tied it up, they beat it to death with shovels because it was 1935 and they were, preteen boys and they thought that's what they should do. But this was a huge story in the newspapers, and it went on to inspire all of these myths and tall tales that we've heard about gators growing in the sewers of big cities. So joke writer Frank Pirelli wrote the very first script about this concept, and it took place in Milwaukee, not Chicago. The idea was that a gator in the sewers was eating up and drinking up all of the discarded alcohol from like the Milwaukee brewers, because there's all these big breweries in Milwaukee, and that it wasn't just giant, but it was also drunk and agitated, and it was going to terrorize the city. And that's what that was. Well, that script found its way to Roger Corman and New World Pictures, and he kicked it over to Lewis Teague to make a film. Lewis Teague was an editor at New World Pictures and was tight with Roger Corman, but he'd only made one movie, and that movie was called The Lady in Red, and he made it with screenwriter John Sayles, and Robert Forster had a part in the movie.
Nice.
The reason why Roger Corman liked Lewis Teague so much is because they were trying to sell this movie and get distribution for this film that they made called Cockfighters. And they could not get any distribution because nobody would touch the movie because it actually wasn't that exploitative at all. And so he contacted Lewis Teague and he said, "Hey, I need you to edit a new trailer for this." and just put in as much sex and violence as you can. And he was like, well, there really isn't a lot of sex and violence in the movie. He goes, I don't care where you get the shots of sex and violence from. Just get them into the trailer so we can sell this thing. So he went into the old archives of all the old, movies from New World Pictures and Roger Corman and all, to just pull stuff with sex and violence that hadn't been released in other movies and just put them in this trailer to sell it. And so he put it together, and Corman was like, this looks great. And he said to him, listen, I feel kind of guilty about putting all this into the trailer. None of these scenes are actually in the movie. And Roger Corman's like, yeah, you're right. Put all those scenes in the real movie. And so he found a way to edit all this sex and violence that wasn't even part of this film, Cockfighters, into the movie so they could sell it. And that put him on really good terms with Roger Corman. And that's how he got his first directing job, doing The Lady in Red. So then when Alligator showed up and they were like, hey, do you want to make this? You can direct it. He said, I'm only going to direct it if you let John Sayles rewrite the script. And so that's how we got this whole dream team together to make this movie. So it was in the idea phase and development for a lot of years before it actually happened. The design for the Gator was originally this 36-foot long rubber suit that was crazy thick and really hot. And it looked great, but they stored it in a place that wasn't very, I think they weren't able to control the temperature, and it got hit with all this heat. And so when they brought it out to use it, it was falling apart and wasting away. So they had to completely redo it. And that was a dude named Ben Stansbury who designed that. So they got a guy named Bob Short to come in, take over, and remake it. He still used rubber, but he made it even thicker, and he put in all this aluminum and steel framing to stop it from wasting away. Well, this made it really heavy. Yeah. And so they were trying to figure out, how are we going to get this thing to move properly and realistically on film? They hired 2 NFL linemen to come in and put the gator legs on and run with this thing to try to make it look like a gator running. And they did a test with it in a parking lot, and it just looked so silly. It looked like the gator was running with teeny tiny steps, you could put in a little behind it, and it would just be so cartoonish. And that's kind of when they said, okay, fuck, we're going to have to completely rethink how we're doing this. And that's why we ended up getting shots where it was just the head, and shots where it's just the tail, and all these other shots where they utilize miniatures and models to kind of sell the illusion. Oh, and Louis Teague, as a director, he didn't direct The Lady in Red till he was already 41 years old. He did a lot of different things in both film and theater before getting into directing. I mentioned already that Stephen King saw this and liked it a whole lot. And so he approached Louis Teague about directing Cat's Eye, which was an anthology horror film, and then also Cujo. And Robert Forster was approached about appearing in Part 2, The Mutation, but the script was even too bad for Robert Forster to say yes, and so he turned it down because of the terrible script. So yeah, I've got other stuff here, but those were the really big, interesting ones that I wanted to break off.
And also, what's interesting is that I didn't know that he was an editor, or did that and was an editor and so on. So that's interesting as well, because one of the big things about this movie that I love and I think works so well is the editing of how they're splicing in. I mean, I mentioned it in those scenes where we are getting the pure fucking chaos. It's so well edited and structured and put together to every shot. And every moment is about delivering the biggest impact that moment can. That's the power of editing, isn't it? And so it goes to show that he clearly, it's right, he was a great editor, and he clearly fucking edit the shit out of this movie really fucking well. But there we go. I mean, so what we do, we go into our very overall thoughts of the movie, but it's only very quick because everybody knows that we love this bloody movie, and we've just spoken how much we love this movie. But very quickly, and I always let my guests go first. So Newman, what are your quick overall thoughts on Alligator?
It's 90 minutes of absolute creature feature 80s horror fun. There's all these moments in this movie we've spoken about that don't make sense if you were actually trying to catch a gator in real life and save people from this gator attack. But they make sense for this movie. And this movie is operating with different rules than normal reality. And so, especially for the time period and especially for the budget, it's just loaded with charm, gore, fun. Out of all of the Jaws ripoffs or Jaws clones or whatever you would call movies like this, I think it might be my favorite because it is doing a Jaws riff, but it's making so many other choices to make it different from Jaws. So it's not like it's trying to be a carbon copy. It's kind of like, we're inspired by that, but we're going to do something very different while still living in that same structure.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, that's one of my things that I was going to say about this in my overall thoughts, like I sort of mentioned earlier, is the fact that I love the fact that this movie is trying to be its own thing. Like, the thing is that no matter after Jaws, as soon as you make a movie with an animal in it, it's going to be like referenced as Jaws, or it's going to be like, this movie's trying to be Jaws. And a lot of them were trying to be Jaws, because as we all know, Jaws is considered one of the greatest movies that's ever been made in the history of cinema. So of course people are going to try and replicate it and so on. But the hard part about that is that it's a little bit niche in regards to the fact that it isn't like an animal horror. Like, it is it is a movie about a shark, killing people. And then, so if you start making movies about piranhas that are killing people, alligators that are killing people, of course you're going to get reference to Jaws, one of the greatest movies of all time. You're always going to live in the shadow. It's like when you get your remakes, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2003. Is always going to live in the shadow from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But I love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2003, whether people like it or not. But it doesn't mean that it's not any good. And that's what I love about Alligator, is that I think that it is a movie that is truly just trying to be its own unapologetic movie of its own. But it just so happens to the fact it's, the alligator is the killer in it, and it is always going to be as part of living in the shadow of Jaws. But also, the sad part of that is that can be a thing that can hinder any sort of success. It's a bit like, and I talk about it all the time, Black Christmas. Black Christmas is one of my favorite horror movies, but people tend to only really watch it at Christmas, and it's a Christmas sort of horror movie. So it's already sort of like lost the race, so to speak, against other movies that aren't set around that time. So it's still a movie that's considered a classic, but maybe if it wasn't set at Christmas, would we consider it even more of an iconic movie because we can watch it whenever? Does that make sense? So
It does. It makes me wonder about movies like Jaws, because I don't think Alligator has a seasonal time where you'd say to yourself, well, this is really the time of year you would want to watch this. Whereas Jaws definitely is a summer movie.
Yeah.
You could watch it any time of year, but you're really going to watch that during the summertime. And I think it's kind of similar with Black Christmas, where it's like, yeah, I guess you could watch it any time of year, but why would you watch it any other time other than the holiday season? So it puts itself in that place of holiday horror, whether it maybe wanted to or not. How fucked up is it that the same guy who directed Black Christmas also did A Christmas Story?
Yeah, that's pretty fucked up, right?
What?
Yeah, that's fucked up. But yeah, and I just think that the sad part is that because it is essentially a movie that is an alligator, is the person that's going around doing it. I think the sad part is because of movies like Jaws, that these films always live in the shadows of something else. Like I say, like with Black Christmas and so on. So that means like less people sort of almost want to watch them because they already know it's probably not going to be as good as one of the greatest movies that has ever been made, which is Jaws. So for me personally, like, I don't really need to go into like how I feel about it, because I love this movie. I truly love it. It is a movie that I love to watch. I truly enjoy it. I love chaos, and I love how chaotic this fucking movie gets. Those moments I love it, but I also love how this movie is on a technical level. I think it looks fucking great. As I said, the editing is phenomenal. The practical effects are unbelievably good for the time and still look unbelievably good, which goes into one of the other things that I was going to mention, which is a little bit different as well. But one of the things so I got the 4K version of this movie, and it's like you said at the very start as well, is that sometimes, like, when you get movies that are actually made very well, 4K is actually something that can really like help that. Like it enhances the viewing factor of some of these movies. Sometimes it makes movies look like shit because they were made like shit and they're just put on 4K to make money. But Alligator, so if you do not have the 4K of Alligator, I've got it over here. We've got like a really cool set, which is really cool artwork, and then of course you've got like really cool artwork on there as well, which is like a hand and stuff. And in here you get like a poster, and you also get a book about Alligator 1 and 2 as well. So it's a really cool set, but the Alligator 1, that is, I don't think the second one is, but unfortunately, but the first one is remastered and put together in 4K. It looks amazing. So if you are somebody that is out there, you like 4K, or you want to watch this movie, if you love this movie and you haven't got a 4K, you've got to, because it genuinely looks incredible. It doesn't highlight how bad things look, it just highlights how good things are. And that's what I love. And that's when you know like a 4K version works. So I love this movie. Watch it on 4K. It's incredible. And like I say all the time, that this movie is the type of movie that I feel, and I recommend, and I had a little article, I'm not going to go into it, but I had a little article in an independent horror magazine that I was really lucky to have. I'm really grateful to do it. And I spoke about movies where 80s deep cut cult horrors are horror movies that I think that we need now more than ever with this, the world we live in now with the nihilistic tone of horror movies. There's not too much fun anymore, or fun in the way of these 80s deep cut horrors. And there's loads of ones that I always recommend, but in my article that I did, among others, Alligator is one of those movies that I recommended in it. So I couldn't recommend this movie more if you haven't seen it. And if you have seen it, then you know what the fuck we're talking about. You know how fucking glorious this movie is. And the fact that we get one of my favourite things in life to see, which is alligators death rolling the motherfuckers everywhere. I don't know what it's going to be, but if alligators be death rolling, I'm fucking watching it. And I absolutely fucking love it. So it's a great movie. We both love this movie. And it's such a true joy to watch pure chaos fold in front of us, and that is at the hand of a giant fucking alligator, which is so cool, and I absolutely love it. So that's the movie. We always move on, so I'm going to move on to the segment Your First Time. So that is where you, this incredible horror community, or anybody out there, you send me your first time horror movie memories and I read it out on the show. Newman, of course, being a return guest, we've heard his horror movie memory before. So what I'm going to do is, after we've done this, I'm going to ask him for a very quick recommendation, even if he's like, this movie, see you later. That's it. But we get a really cool recommendation. The good thing about the recommendations that I'm getting so far from people is that a lot of the time I'm like, shit, I haven't even seen that. So now I've got another movie to watch. Thank you very much. But on this one, this first time horror movie memory was sent over to me by Holly Woods from the Totally Tubular Trivia podcast from Instagram. They put, I'm going to get through this quickly because it's quite long, but I'm going to get through it. My first horror movie memory goes back to Halloween night in the early 80s. I was 8 years old, just in from trick-or-treating, sitting on our own ugly brown den carpet. We all know these sort of carpets. I just dumped my plastic jack-o'-lantern bucket out to sort and trade candy with my older sister in front of our floor model Cassar brand TV. I don't know what that is, but people will know what it is. As we were going through the candy there, the weird sound caught my attention. It was a mechanical whirring noise, and what I know now are called servo sounds, the noise robotic joints make when they move. I looked up at the screen and there was a creepy ass robot who I later learned was called Hector, the homicidal robot from Saturn III. I caught the part right at the part of the movie where Hector is reassembling his own body after the crew, Robert Forster and Kirk Douglas, had dismantled him. Seeing that towering machine piece itself back together was the scariest thing I'd ever seen at that age. That movie completely ruined the 1982's World Fair for me, which happened around the same time. That fair was unfortunately dominated by robots. There was robots in the arcade playing video games, a giant mechanical printer arm painting pictures at the Peru exhibit, and even a large Heinz ketchup bottle robot handing out plastic pickle pins. It should have been a special happy childhood memory. Instead, I spent the whole time looking over my shoulder, terrified that Hector was going to come around the corner. Thanks to watching Saturn 3 on Halloween night, a great event turned into a bad memory, and to this day, I'm still not very keen on robots. So there, so there we go. So that was awesome. So thank you so much to Hollywoods for sending that over. I said you can find them on Instagram, Totally Tubular Trivia podcast. I forgot what it was. But as I always say to people, is that this is a segment that I love. The sad thing is that I don't really get sent many. And I don't have any as of right now. As I'm recording this is the last one that I have. Nobody sent any over to me. So if you want your first time horror movie memory read out on the show, get onto the socials, DM me your first time horror movie memory, and I'll read it out on the show. It's also like free fucking promo, so get in there and do it. So recommendation time. Newman, have you got a recommendation?
Well, we're talking Gator movies. I'm going to recommend the 2019 film Crawl. This is a wonderful, wonderful creature feature flick from 2019.
Is that the one in the storm?
Yes, there's a hurricane hitting a Florida house, and a college student and her dad are stuck in the crawl space beneath the house, and gators are coming. So as the gators have gotten into the house, they can only move and crawl around. But as the house is being flooded, the water line is going up. And so the gator's ability to maneuver down there is getting better, and the danger of drowning is going up for our two lead characters. I mean, it's not very ambitious, but it is a near perfect execution of what it's trying to do. And in my opinion, if you were going to put gator movies and shark movies in the same basket, I think this film is second only to Jaws.
Yeah, you're right. Crawl's a really good movie. It's really good at delivering. Like you were saying, it's not the most ambitious movie. You're exactly right. But the way that it delivers the tension, the dread throughout, it's pretty unexpected as well. The moments that happen in it with characters, or the moments that happen in it. So yeah, you're exactly right. That's a really good recommendation. And even though I didn't watch it too long ago, you've made me now want to watch Crawl again. So there we go. So there's another one I've got to bloody watch. Add that to the list.
Add it to the list.
Add it to the list. The ever-growing. I mean, the list is already too fucking long, but now it's another one. Well, that's the episode. So thank you so much, obviously, Newman, for coming on your show. But also, now is your time to promote everything that you've got going on with Movies for Days.
Well, thank you, BP. It's been an absolute delight, as it always is. And if folks want to hear more of my voice and my thoughts about movies, you can hear more from me on the Movies for Days podcast, your non-pretentious, easy access movie chat podcast. Every Friday, doing another deep dive into any film from any decade with anybody's guess as to how we chose that film that week. You can find me on Twitter and YouTube at Movies Days. I spell Days with a Z. You can find me on Instagram at Movies for Days. It's the number 4, and we've got underscores in the middle there where they would normally be. And as I am a horror freak, you can also find me on the Slasher app at Movies for Days.
There we go. I mean, Newman's absolutely bloody everywhere, as he should be. As Newman knows, I love chatting with him. We always have so much fun. It's always the chaos that I absolutely love. We do love a little bit of chaos, and it's always so much fun talking to you. But also, I know, Newman's also, when it comes to doing this, he's on his journey on his own, doing it as well. Very similar to mine, is in, we do all of this on our own. And what's great about what Newman does is that it is always fun. It's always exciting. What he talks about is not only, trying to bring the fun into it, but also it's informative, and also he fucking loves it, and he has a lot of passion about it as well. So if you love people that talk passionately want to truly talk about what they love, then go and listen to Movies for Days. I always say it as if but people who listening to this will listen to everything that you're doing already anyway. But even if you're not, go and check out everything Newman does, because he's an absolute top bloody dude. And also, I love talking to him, and that's all that fucking matters, right? Like, everybody from that, people go and enjoy everything. But that's it. But go and check out everything that Newman does with Movies for Days. In regards to Let's Talk Horror, I always close out the show with saying a massive thank you to my honorary creepazoids over on Patreon. We've got Jamie, we've got Rob, we've got Leighton, we've got Kate, we've got Michael. They are the people that are part of my Patreon, where they basically pay, I think it's £2 a month, I think it is, to get exclusive access to more things, all things Let's Talk Horror. You get the Creep's Choice episode, which is where they pick me a movie and I talk about it. And quite honestly, most of the movies they've told me to talk about so far have been utter shit. So I do an episode basically talking about how shit those movies have been so far. But every now and again, they put out, I say every now and again, I think there's been one movie out of all the ones we've done that was actually good. And pretty much everything else has been shit. So by the time this comes out, maybe we've had a good one. I don't know, but I will be very honest, and they've all been fucking shit so far. But they're going above and beyond to help me on my journey through horror with Let's Talk Horror. So if you want to know a little bit more about that, go to patreon.com, look for the Let's Talk Horror channel. I'm sure there'll be a link if I remember to do it in the video or whatever you're listening to it on. But Let's Talk Horror, it's still bloody going. But once again, Newman, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed this chat about this top-notch movie.
Oh, thank you again, BP. I love talking with you about horror. I love talking with you about movies. It's always a great time. Can't wait to have you back on my show. And just because I forgot to mention it before, you can easily find all my episodes on yourunpodcast.com. The You Run Podcast Network is where I hang my hat, and it's a damn good place to be. So folks should also check out that network and see if there's another show that might grab their ears just as we have today.
Absolutely, as well as Movies for Days, the You Run podcast network. I always forget what it's called, but they have so many great shows on there that I also listen to as well. So go and check it out over there, and check everybody else out over there. But as I say, in regards to Let's Talk Horror, we keep going. Somehow I'm still on this journey through horror, and it means the world to me for those that have been on this journey with me, or even start this journey with me, even on this episode. Thank you all. It genuinely means the world to me, and I want to keep doing this for as long as I can. But you will play the biggest part in all of that. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope that you enjoy what comes next. But until next time, stay creepy, fuckers.